Well, what you just saw was a little bit of my black belt test back in 1968. I was 17 years old and one of the youngest black belts in the country. In fact, I was one of the few black belts in the country because back in those days, there weren't that many of us. Well, today there are a lot of black belts, and there are also a lot of myths and misconceptions surrounding the black belt. So let's talk about a few of those. One that you might have heard is that a black belt is a white belt that the practitioner just sullied with dirt and sweat and blood over the years so that it turned black. Well, that's simply not true. For one thing, the Japanese, all the Asian cultures are fastidious by nature, and they would never wear an article of clothing until it turned black with age. Actually, a white belt would turn probably a dingy brown anyway. Another one you may have heard is that the black belt is the ancient symbol of mastery of the martial arts. Well, for those of us that are in the martial arts, we understand that a black belt, at least a first-degree black belt, is certainly not a master. Perhaps they have mastered the basic elements of their martial arts, but they've just begun to take the first step. In fact, the English translation of first dan, first-degree black belt, is first step. So when you achieve your first black belt, you've just taken that first step on a lifelong journey, hopefully, in the martial arts. Another one you may have heard is that 1 in every 10,000 people make black belt. Well, I guess it depends on the school or the instructor that you're talking to. Some people say 1 in every 50,000 people make black belt. Well, that's kind of a marketing thing, I think, because in my experience, 1 in several hundred people make black belt. And certainly a black belt should be difficult to attain. Unfortunately, the requirements for black belt vary so widely from school to school and system to system that sometimes when somebody comes in and tells me that they're a black belt, my first question is, well, how long have you been training? Who is your instructor? That kind of thing. Because just by saying that they're a first-degree black belt, or frankly, even a second, third, or fourth-degree black belt, doesn't tell me a whole lot about their level of skill. Well, let's talk about actually where the black belt came from. Do you realize that the first black belt in karate was actually awarded in 1924? Former President Jimmy Carter was born in 1924. And as of this shoot, he's still alive and publicly visible. So just imagine that the karate black belt is only as old as President Carter. Well, actually, there were black belts before that, but it was in the art of judo. Jigoro Kano, who founded the system of judo, awarded his first black belts in the 1880s. And then Gichin Funakoshi, the father of modern karate, liked the idea so much that he adapted that into his karate style. In fact, Funakoshi also borrowed several other things from judo, including the gi, the white uniform that we wear. So where did Kano come up with the black belt? Well, the whole idea of ranking Q down ranking system comes from the Chinese game of Go, which Kano adapted into his martial art of judo, and then Funakoshi took it into karate. The Koreans, incidentally, really didn't use a ranking system until after World War II, when the Korean country was liberated from Japanese occupation by the Allies at the end of the war. Interestingly, the Korean system goes up to 9th degree black belt, Japanese 10th degree black belt. Well, there are some Japanese systems that don't go all the way up to 10. Anyway, it's rather confusing. Depending on who you ask, there are several reasons why Koreans go to 9th and Japanese to 10. Most American systems, by the way, have adapted the 1 to 10 ranking system. And depending on the style, sometimes the belt might even change color. Sometimes from black to red, or red and white, or red and black. It does get kind of confusing. Basically, it boils down to whatever the instructors in that particular system want to do. And remember, it's not age-old tradition because the black belt was first awarded only less than 100 years ago. There was one other thing in Japanese karate styles that you might hear about, and those are teaching titles or licenses, Kyoshi, Hanshi. They're roughly tied to rank, but not totally. In other words, an 8th degree black belt could be a Hanshi, teacher of teachers, or perhaps not. It depends on the ranking system. But at any rate, the point I want to get across to people who are watching this is that there are a lot of myths about the black belt. It really depends on your own school, your own instructor. I would encourage you to study with him or her to attain the black belt in your school, and then perhaps to branch out into other martial arts. Because remember, martial arts is a lifelong journey. I'll see you in the next video.